3:47 in the morning. Room 1418 of a Midtown Manhattan hotel. The room is dark. The guest sleeps. A bedbug, just under a tenth of an inch long, with no eyes worth speaking of, navigates by the carbon dioxide drifting down from the bed above. It emerges from a seam in the baseboard and begins crossing the carpet. It does not reach the bed. What it walks through instead is a film of mineral powder, so thin the housekeeping staff who applied it 3 years earlier would not recognize it on sight. Within 48 hours, that bedbug is dead. The powder is still there. The powder will still be there a decade from now. A 4-ounce bottle of this stuff costs about $15 on Amazon. Spread across a bedroom, the active material per square foot of treated surface works out to roughly $2. The chemical industry generates an estimated $400 million annually selling pyrethroid sprays for the same problem. The residential market for the powder under discussion comes in well under $20 million. The powder kills better. The sprays sell 20 times more. This is not a conspiracy. It is a business model functioning exactly as designed. Tonight, the mechanics of that design, the 80-year evolutionary catastrophe that made it inevitable, and a forgotten paper from 1943 that quietly contains the protocol now hidden inside the mattresses of the world's most expensive hotels. The Forgotten Observer. His name was Henry Howard Richardson. He worked for the United States Department of Agriculture as an economic entomologist. In 1943, while the country was rationing rubber and shipping its sons to the Pacific, Richardson wrote an 8-page paper for the Journal of Economic Entomology. The title was austere and unmarketable: The Action of Bean Leaves Against the Bedbug. Richardson had been told the story by immigrants. In the Balkans, particularly Bulgaria and Serbia, households facing bedbug infestations followed a peculiar nighttime ritual. Before sleeping, they scattered kidney bean leaves on the floor around the bed. By morning, the leaves were coated in bedbugs, the insects somehow pinned in place. The household gathered the leaves, took them outside, and burned them. The practice was older than Richardson knew. The English philosopher John Locke had recorded a version of it in 1678. Richardson took the ritual into a USDA laboratory. What he saw under the best microscopes of 1943 was that the underside of a kidney bean leaf is densely covered in thousands of microscopic plant hairs called trichomes. Each trichome curves at the tip into a tiny hook. When a bedbug walks across the leaf, the hooks catch its legs. That was as far as Richardson's optics could take him. He concluded the trichomes physically entangled the bug, essentially microscopic Velcro. He published the paper. The paper was correct in spirit and incomplete in mechanism. Almost no one read it for the next 70 years. The chemical erasure. The reason Richardson's paper disappeared was not malice. It was DDT. By 1943, the same year Richardson published, DDT was being shipped by the ton to American troops to delouse soldiers in the field. By 1945, it was on the shelves of every hardware store in the country. A single application to a bed frame could keep a bedroom clean for over a year. There was no reason to scatter bean leaves on the floor when a bottle of liquid would do the same job for 12 months. Through the 1950s, bedbug infestations in the United States collapsed. Pest control companies retired the species from their training manuals. Entomology textbooks demoted it to a footnote. By the early 1990s, an entire American generation had grown up without ever seeing one. The folk knowledge of the Balkans was gone. The 1943 paper went with it. Knowledge does not need to be suppressed to be lost. It only needs to be inconvenient relative to whatever replaces it. DDT was banned for most U.S. uses in 1972, following Silent Spring and a long Environmental Protection Agency review. Other chemistries carried the load through the next 2 decades. Then, international air travel got cheap, tourism exploded, and small populations of bedbugs that had survived in remote pockets of the world began catching rides in luggage. The bugs that came back were not the bugs that had been driven out. Why the spray on your shelf does not work. A common claim is that modern bedbugs evolved armor. That is not quite right. The real mechanism was identified in 2008 by a team led by Kyung-Sup Yoon, studying a strain collected in New York City. They found 2 point mutations on the gene for the voltage-gated sodium channel, V419L and L925I. The sodium channel is the molecular gate that pyrethroid insecticides target. When the chemistry binds correctly, the gate locks open, the nerve fires uncontrollably, and the insect dies of what entomologists call knockdown. The 2 mutations alter the shape of that gate just enough that the pyrethroid molecule no longer fits cleanly. The nerve keeps working, the bug walks away. This is knockdown resistance, or KDR. In April of 2025, a team at Virginia Tech led by Warren Booth and graduate student Camille Bloch reported a separate mutation, A302S, on a gene called RDL in 2 of 134 North American populations they screened. That second mutation confers resistance to a different class of insecticide. The bugs are accumulating tools against several chemistries at once, across continents. On a heavily pyrethroid-resistant strain, label rate doses of common consumer sprays may produce single-digit mortality. The bottle under the kitchen sink may genuinely do nothing. Pyrethroids still deserve a fair hearing. On a non-resistant population, deltamethrin will kill within minutes. These products are EPA-registered, household safe at label rate, with decades of toxicology behind them. The chemistry industry did not design them to fail. They worked extraordinarily well for 40 years. The problem was that humanity ran a 40-year evolution experiment, and the bugs won. What Richardson missed. In April of 2013, 2 laboratories pulled Richardson's paper out of obscurity and ran the experiment again with 70 years of better instruments. One was at the University of California, Irvine, led by Catherine Loudon with graduate student Megan Sindler. The other was at the University of Kentucky, led by Michael Potter, an urban entomologist struggling, like every entomologist in America, with the resurgence. The labs placed bedbugs on the underside of kidney bean leaves. A scanning electron microscope recorded what happened next, frame by frame. The bugs were trapped within seconds. On average, after only 9 locomotory cycles, roughly 50 footsteps. 90% were immobilized within 19 cycles. The average ensnared bug had been impaled through 3 or 4 legs. The trichomes were not entangling the bugs. They were piercing them, driving through the soft cuticle between leg joints, through the underside of the claws, through the thinnest membranes of the foot. Once impaled, the bug could not pull free. Struggling drove the hooks in deeper. The microscope showed clean punctures, not snags. This was the detail Richardson did not have the optics to see. The mechanism was not Velcro. It was barbed hooks puncturing soft tissue at a scale far below the human eye. Loudon and Potter then tried to build synthetic versions of the leaf in polymer. The synthetic surfaces caught the bugs temporarily, but did not impale them as effectively as living tissue. The geometry was harder to copy than to grow, but a different solution had been quietly waiting in a separate product for years. The principle Richardson stumbled into, that a chemically immune insect can be killed using nothing but physics, already existed in a bottle. It was a mineral, ground to dust. The $2 mineral. The brand name is Silica. The active ingredient is 100% amorphous silica gel, silicon dioxide manufactured into particles so fine they behave almost like smoke. The same compound chemically as the desiccant packets in a new pair of shoes, as beach sand, as quartz, as window glass. When a bedbug walks through a film of Silica, the powder does not poison it. The powder is electrostatically charged and clings to the waxy outer layer of the insect's exoskeleton. That waxy layer is the only thing keeping the bug from drying out. Silica gel particles absorb the wax molecule by molecule. They strip the seal. The bug walks away looking unharmed, and over the next 48 to 72 hours, it loses water through its own cuticle and dies of dehydration. Two things make this mechanism uniquely valuable. The first is that it is purely physical. There is no chemical receptor for the bug to mutate against. There is no enzyme that can be upregulated to detoxify silicon dioxide. Pyrethroid resistance took roughly 40 years to evolve. Resistance to dehydration would require redesigning the insect exoskeleton, a 400-million-year-old structure shared across nearly every insect species on Earth. Evolution does not work on that timescale. The second is shelf life. Silica is not a chemical that degrades. It is a stable mineral. Applied into a wall void or under a baseboard, undisturbed and dry, it remains lethal on a timescale that pesticides cannot match. Industry literature commonly cites up to 10 years of residual activity. A pyrethroid spray loses meaningful potency in roughly 90 days. University of Kentucky field trials, published by Potter and colleagues in 2014, found that Silica achieved 100% mortality on pyrethroid-resistant bedbugs in 3 to 4 days. Diatomaceous earth. The older silica-based dust most home improvement stores sell took 14 days to reach the same kill rate and required significantly larger application amounts. 3 days is acceptable for a hotel. 14 days is a guest cycle. Why nobody told you. Here is the structural reason an effective product can be functionally invisible. Silicon dioxide cannot be patented. It is a mineral that has existed for 4 billion years. Silica is a brand, but the underlying compound is generic. Any chemistry supply company on Earth can produce amorphous silica gel. There is no 20-year patent monopoly. There is no recurring revenue product. There is no quarterly earnings call where a chief executive promises shareholders that bedbug sales will grow next year because the bottle in the closet will still be working in 2036. A pyrethroid is the opposite. The molecule is proprietary. Bottles must be repurchased every 90 days. The product can be sold under 15 different brand names with 15 different marketing budgets. Search any major online retailer for bedbug spray, and the first 3 pages will be pyrethroid products. Search for amorphous silica gel, and the category exists, but it is small, professional, and quiet. No celebrity endorsements, no commercials. This is not because anyone is hiding it. It is because no one stands to make $100 million by telling you about it. Capital flows to where capital can be returned. The product that works the best has no champion. The product that needs reapplying has thousands. This is the same mechanism that buried Richardson's 1943 paper. A method that lasts a decade has no economic engine behind it. A method that requires repurchase has a continent of marketing departments. The first quietly vanishes from public awareness. The second becomes what bedbug spray is. A moment of recognition. Somewhere in your family line, within the last 4 generations, a woman dealt with bedbugs without chemicals. If grandparents or great-grandparents lived in the Balkans, in rural Appalachia, in the Mediterranean, in much of pre-1940s Eastern Europe, she almost certainly knew the bean leaf method, or some local equivalent involving boiling water, wood smoke, or earth dust. She did not know about trichomes or cuticles or silicon dioxide. She knew what worked. That knowledge passed from her to her daughter, and probably to her daughter, and then it stopped. In one generation, the generation that bought DDT at the hardware store in 1953, it stopped. This is what acknowledged loss looks like when the loss is not dramatic. No villain, no conspiracy, only an inheritance that was not received. What a professional protocol actually does. The top-tier hotels run 5 layers. None are exotic. All of them can be done in a standard bedroom for under $50 total. The first is encasement. A bite-proof, micro-zippered, 6-sided mattress encasement costs between $30 and $60. It removes approximately 70% of a bedbug's preferred hiding territory in one application: the deep seams of the mattress, the dark folds of a box spring, the joint where the headboard meets the frame. Bugs cannot enter. Bugs already inside cannot exit. Any bug remaining on the bright white outer fabric becomes visible to a housekeeper within seconds. The second is the dust. A 4-ounce bottle of Simexa, around $15, applied with an $8 hand bellows duster into bed frame joints, baseboard cracks, behind nightstands, and around electrical outlet boxes. The film should be barely visible. A thick line the bug can see, the bug walks around. A whisper-thin film is invisible and binds to the cuticle on contact. This layer remains active for years. The third is the moat. Climb-up insect interceptors, small plastic pitfall traps placed under the legs of the bed. Outer wall rough and climbable, inner well-polished and dusted with talc. A bedbug climbing toward the host falls into the well and cannot climb out. Field studies suggest interceptors detect roughly 90% of low-level infestations within 7 to 14 days. The bed must be pulled 6 inches from the wall, and no bedding can touch the floor, or the interceptor becomes decorative. The fourth is canine inspection, and this layer requires honesty. A 2008 University of Florida study by Feaster, Kohler, and Pereira reported 97.5% canine accuracy with 0 false positives under controlled conditions. A 2014 Rutgers field study by Richard Cooper and colleagues, testing 11 commercial teams in real apartments, reported an average detection rate of 44% and a 15% false positive rate. A properly trained dog, operated by a skilled handler, is the best early warning system available. Most dogs in the field are not operated by skilled handlers. The fifth is heat. Adult bedbugs die within 20 minutes at 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Eggs require 122 degrees in the same window, or 118 sustained for 90 minutes. Professional thermal remediation raises a room to 130 to 140 degrees for 4 to 6 hours, ensuring lethal temperatures penetrate into wall voids, mattress cores, and the cracks under baseboards. Cost: $1,500 to $4,000 per room. The household equivalent is a clothes dryer on the highest setting for 30 minutes, which produces fabric temperatures well above any bedbug life stage's thermal death point. Stack the layers. Encasement, 30 to 60. Dust, 15, lasts up to a decade. Interceptors, 12 to 20, reusable. UV flashlight, 12. Luggage liners, 15. Under 50 total if assembled carefully. Compare to 1 professional heat remediation, 1,500 at the floor. Compare to a pyrethroid spray that may produce single-digit mortality on the resistance strain in your building, $30 per bottle, repurchased every 90 days, forever. The product that gets sold the hardest is the product that works the least. What the operators already know. 3 legal cases from the last few years illustrate why the math gets serious. In May of 2025, a Ventura County jury awarded $2 million to 2 men, Alvaro Gutierrez and Ramiro Sanchez, after a single overnight stay at the Shores Inn in Ventura, California. $400,000 to one, $600,000 to the other in compensatory damages, plus $500,000 each in punitive. The jury found the hotel had ignored prior complaints. The Disneyland Resort settled a separate claim for $100,000 in 2022. A Hollywood Hills property settled for $375,000 in 2023. The most serious case is Fulton County, Georgia. In September of 2022, an inmate named LaShawn Thompson was found dead in a jail cell, his body covered in bedbug bites and lice. An independent autopsy listed severe insect infestation, dehydration, and untreated schizophrenia as contributing causes. The Fulton County Board of Commissioners settled with his family for $4 million in August of 2023. A $15 bottle of Silica, an $8 duster, a $30 encasement, set against the legal exposure of a single dismissed guest complaint that turns into a verdict 3 years later. Honest limitations. 3 of them are worth stating plainly. First, the protocol above is built for prevention and early infestation. If a colony is already established in a wall void, dust alone will not solve it. Professional heat remediation is required at that point, no exception. Layered defense holds the perimeter. It does not win a siege. Second, amorphous silica is mildly irritating to the lungs during application. The particles are fine enough to suspend in the air for the 10 minutes of dusting. An N95 mask costs $3 and is mandatory during application. After the dust settles, the inhalation hazard is functionally 0. Crystalline silica, the form found in pool-grade diatomaceous earth, is a different and more dangerous compound that can cause silicosis. Silica is amorphous, not crystalline, and is not linked to silicosis. Third, the protocol assumes the bug enters through the bedroom. It cannot help if the bug rides home inside a suitcase pocket and is unloaded directly into a closet drawer. Travel hygiene. UV inspection of hotel mattresses, sealing luggage in liner bags, drying returned clothing on high heat is a separate layer, and skipping it makes every other layer weaker. The Field Manual. Audio is the wrong medium for application diagrams. Where exactly the dust film should sit in a bedroom, where interceptor placement geometry actually matters, the order in which the 5 layers are laid down, these are visual problems. A QR code appears on the screen now. Scanning it pulls down a free PDF, a printable field manual that extends what the video could not show. The full 5-layer protocol with application maps. A 5-minute hotel room inspection checklist for the next trip. A travel laundry routine. An identification guide separating bedbug bites from the things that look like bedbug bites and aren't. A decision tree for when DIY ends and professional heat remediation begins. A 30-day field journal template. No email required, no mailing list. The aim is to make this knowledge harder to lose than Richardson's paper was. Save it, print it, hand it to a family member. Closing. Room 1418 of that Midtown hotel went on to serve roughly 900 more guests in the year after that one bedbug walked across the carpet and dehydrated on the way to the bed. None of them ever knew about the mineral powder under the mattress. They slept, they left, and the dust kept working. Henry Richardson published his paper in 1943, and for 70 years it sat in a stack of journals while better-funded chemistry replaced him. Michael Potter at the University of Kentucky read it again. Catherine Loudon at the University of California, Irvine ran the electron microscope. Megan Sindler counted the locomotor cycles. The Balkan housewives, anonymous and long dead, had been right since at least 1678. Tonight, the bed frame. Encasement on the mattress. $15 of dust in the joints. 4 interceptors under the legs. A small ultraviolet light for the next hotel stay. Then, 30 days from now, the comment section below. What landed in the interceptor wells? Which corner of the room the dust missed? The bed frame joint where the bugs were actually hiding. Which dryer cycle finally cleared a laundry batch? No industry-funded study runs that experiment at the scale of a YouTube comment section. No marketing department wants the data. But the data is useful. The same kind of observation Richardson sat down to record in 1943, done by a few thousand people at once, with no patent and no incentive except to know what actually works. The leaves were never the secret. The principle was physics over chemistry, mechanism over marketing. A paper that sat unread for 70 years, finally on the right desk.